40 degrees in Florida right now, by the way. Any of you that said this place is warm lied to us. California is much better. Kidding, sort of.
Not this time.
Anyway, today we are talking about a car that is arguably the underdog of the early 2000s sport compact scene. This is a front-wheel drive, menace that punches way out of its weight class. Guess what? You know what we're talking about, Neon SRT-4. This is the hot-rodded version of the humble Neon that Mopar fans still to this day rave about. Yep, you heard that right. This is the same Neon that you have seen your grandmother puttering around with a missing hubcap in town to the grocery store. Except this one had a 2.4-liter turbocharged engine with a turbo the size of your face slapped on it by SRT at the factory. Here's the kicker. For a while, this thing was faster in a straight line than pretty much all of its contemporary rivals, sometimes even giving the big boys a run for their money. Yeah, it's not as refined as like a Civic Type R or a WRX, but guess what? That's not why you're buying it. If you want a raw, spunky, let's gap some unsuspecting traffic kind of car without taking out a second mortgage, the SRT-4 might just be the perfect candidate for you. Today, we are diving into all the reasons you should buy one, assuming you can handle a little bit of torque steer and roll down rear windows. So let's take a look at the origins of how a Neon got a turbo and grew some fangs. Dodge introduced the Neon SRT-4 for the 2003 model year under their street and racing technology umbrella. And you see, the idea was simple. Let's take an average economy car. Let's take this turbo motor, stuff it in there, give it some sporty suspension, a few visual tweaks. The 2.4-liter turbocharged inline-4 came straight from Mopar's engineering labs, churning out around 215 horsepower, 245 foot-pounds of torque initially, which got bumped up to 230 and 250 in later models. Now, in the early 2000s, that was a pretty hefty output for a 4-cylinder motor in a subcompact with a short wheelbase that weighed virtually nothing. Word spread quickly that the SRT-4 was no joke, with quarter-mile times dipping into the high 13-second range. God, remember when that was like kind of fast? With basic modifications embarrassing 2-valve Mustangs and Camaros out on the street before people started putting cams in their Camaros and they got like disgustingly fast. People were like, wait, that's a Neon, right? And indeed it was, but with upgraded internals and intercooler that peeked out through the front grille, still one of the coolest front grilles ever, and that also distinctive Mopar, who cares about subtlety attitude. So the Neon, it's performance on a budget, right? It was one of the biggest selling points of the SRT-4 is that it is cheap to get into, especially in today's used market. Granted, prices can vary based on condition and mileage and modifications and all that stuff, but it's not uncommon to find like a decent looking one for around $5,000. Might be a little more, but nowhere near the price of a similar performing WRX or Turbo Honda or anything similar to that. Now, these things are rough, but again, 5,000 bucks. Can't beat it. You might have to deal with a sketchy prior owner or 5 or 10 or 12, but that's par for the course with a 20-year-old sport compact car. If your budget's tight, your wallet's light, and you want the best bang for your buck, the SRT-4 absolutely delivers for you. Think about the alternatives from the early 2000s. You've got blank and blank and blank, as well as blank. Kidding. You have the WRX 2002 to 2005 all-wheel drive, which is better, but typically more expensive and with that boxer engine's unique propensity to explode head gaskets, ring lands, etc., etc., etc. Lancer Evo 8 and 9, legendary cars, but these are like $20,000 even for an entry-level model. If you want a really clean one, you're spending $30, $35. Civic Si, you get the EP3 and the EM2. EM2s are really expensive. They're fun, but they're nowhere near the power of the SRT-4. GTI Mark IV, if you like the smell of crayons, these are for you, but they're also known for reliability gremlins, plus they were less potent in stock form, plus like 90% of these just have bags and wheels now. The SRT-4's unique selling point is the raw torque that it makes and how cheaply you can unlock more. So you throw a manual boost controller in one of these, God, remember those? Or a Mopar Stage 1 kit if you can find one, and you're on your way to 250 plus horsepower with minimal effort. Turn things up a little further and you'll see 300 ponies at the front tires, though you might want to invest in a limited slip differential and stronger axles because these things do snap axles and can't put power down because they're front wheel drive, so LSD. So let's not ignore the intangible factor. There's a community around these things. If you buy a Honda or a Nissan, you'll find huge established communities like Zilvia, but Mopar folks, they're a special breed. The SRT-4 scene is peppered with enthusiasts who are extremely dedicated to this one oddball platform. Heck, they're even borderline fanatical about extracting power from these little turbo motors. They'll show you detailed how-to guides on how to throw in a bigger turbo, upgrading your fuel system, building your motor, installing, heck, even putting a big brake kit on to actually stop your car that comes out of some random Mopar parts bin. See, some might say SRT-4 owners have a bit of an attitude, kind of like what you see from the cars. And honestly, it's part of the charm. Talk to some SRT-4 owners and you'll witness everything from beat-up daily drivers with 200,000 miles to pristine garage queens to cars running 11s on slicks to cars that are bagged and wrapped and cambered. The community is not as huge as the WRX or Civic crowd, but it's tight-knit and proud of their underdog car. Now, sure, the SRT-4 is not a featherweight, but at 2,900 pounds in stock trim, give or take, depending on the year and added options and other stuff like that, it is a pretty light car by today's standards. And that's one of the reasons why this thing is such a certified ripper. For comparison, many modern hot hatches easily push around 3,300 pounds. Being lighter means you feel that boost kick in. You feel that torque more acutely, and especially in a front-wheel drive setup that can spin the tires at will if you're not careful. That curb weight, paired up with a well-chosen gear ratio in the manual transmission, gives the SRT-4 surprisingly punchy acceleration. Sure, you'll wrestle with torque steer, and sure, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's super fun to drive given how much torque it has. And heck, the torque steer is even part of the fun. If you want a refined experience, there are plenty of other turbo compacts out there. If you want basically like a front-wheel drive muscle car, here it is. So we talked a little bit about modifying these things, but the SRT-4's 2.4-liter inline-4 based on the Chrysler EDV EDT block has proven itself surprisingly robust for moderate power goals. No, you're not making 800, but with basic bolt-ons, intake, exhaust, intercooler, tune, injectors, you can jump up to like 280 to 300 horsepower without really getting into things all that deep. Go a little bit further, throw on a larger turbo, people throw on like a TD05 or a Garrett upgrade, and you can see well north of 350 on a stock bottom end. See, some folks even turn things up to 400 to 500 horsepower with the right supporting mods. However, that's where you start getting into building your internals and all that stuff. You will want to address the Achilles heel of the stock front differential and the third gear grind on these things, but not a huge deal. Might also consider coilovers or springs. The factory suspension, 1, it's ancient. It was built like 20 years ago. And 2, it's not gonna really give you the grip that you need. You do want some sticky tires and wheels to make them fit. So think about that. And you want an LSD so you're not one tire firing through second gear. If you like modifying your car, if you like tinkering with things, the SRT-4 is a great platform to feed your addiction. Now, exhaust. Some people love it. Some people think it sounds like a nest of angry hornets. But the SRT-4 definitely has a unique exhaust tone, especially if you ditch the stock system. Early SRT-4s came out of the box without a muffler from the factory, which is why California actually banned the original SRT-4. Look it up. The resulting noise is borderline comedic, an aggressive noise that's somehow high-pitched, yet menacing at the same time. You're going to want to add a blow-off valve so you get that kind of signature turbo car package, right? That's a package. It might not have the boxer burble of a WRX or the VR6 growl of a Volkswagen, but it's enough to let everyone know that a boosted Neon is rolling by. It's still a Neon now. Some folks hate it, some folks like it. No one's really neutral about the SRT-4 exhaust net. Now, here's kind of a weird one. Dodge never really took the SRT-4 rallying in any serious capacity, but there's a certain like rally-esque vibe to the SRT. It's like fundamentally very similar, like a WRX or like an Evo. And while it might not have all-wheel drive, it's got that same kind of haha, we turboed the cheap car and made it fast spirit that the WRX has. You can find SRT owners who have like thrown coilovers and rally-style wheels and mud tires and similar on them and tore up dirt roads, and it's pretty funny, to be honest with you. The car's short wheelbase and strong torque can make for some entertaining sideways action, even though it is not all-wheel drive. Just watch out for front-wheel drive understeer if you come into corners too hot. Now, insurance, maintenance, not normally things we cover, but we're going to talk about it. If you're a younger driver, insurance can be a little bit steep because guess what? It says SRT in the name. It's a high-performance model. They're going to tax you. It is a little bit less than insuring a WRX because people don't crash them every 5 minutes, especially since parts are often cheaper and the overall value of the car is like $18 on a pack of gum. Basic maintenance on these is very straightforward. It's an inline-4, it's domestically produced, the parts are fairly accessible, it shares everything with like PT Cruisers, oil changes, coolant, spark plugs, nothing unusual or hyper expensive. Now, you might spend a couple bucks in repairing the inevitable spirited driving damage to your transmission, which you're going to break third gear, and the interior. The interior was never exactly bulletproof. It's going to rattle. Plastic bits are going to break because it's like hard American plastic. It's like garbage. The interior is trash. One thing to keep an eye out for is the timing belt service interval. It's part of it. You do timing service on these things. Many Mopar components do interchange with other Dodge products. You can often find replacements on the cheap. Like I said, the PT Cruiser, the SRT-4 had the same motor. So there you go. Now, interior wise, the SRT-4's interior is not going to wow your date. Don't take your date. Don't take your date in an SRT-4. Don't do it. No, take your daily driver. These things suck. The interior has basically a boost gauge, a shifter, a steering wheel, and like all the hard plastic on the planet. Later models had seat bolstering and the leather shift knob, but guess what? This is not an Audi. Materials are economy grade plastics, the cabin insulation is minimal, and you're going to hear every single pebble that pings off the undercarriage. You're going to hear every bump, every rattle, every scrape. But if you care more about 0 to 60 times than plush seats, you will not mind. The interior is simple, it's all business, and it gets the job done. The seats are comfortable enough for daily commutes or road trips, as long as you don't expect a Rolls-Royce level of comfort. So why do people hate these things? And why is that maybe a good thing? Well, some car enthusiasts see the SRT-4 as kind of this like punk kid of the early 2000s. Partly because the typical marketing demographic was way, way, way younger. Dudes who wanted like max horsepower per dollar. These things were cheap. They were like 20 grand brand new. This led to a reputation for burnouts in parking lots, banging off the rev limiter, questionable driving manners, cutting up in traffic, etc., etc., etc. It's a Neon. It's an economy car. This might deter the brand snobs who only want a German badge or JDM Hero car in their driveway. But here's the thing that I find interesting about them. You can use that negative perception to your advantage. See, kids aren't turning 16 and going, I want an SRT-4. They're going, I want a WRX, I want an Evo, I want an S chassis. Therefore, parts are cheaper. The car is cheaper. The community is smaller, yet super helpful. And that sense of being the underdog is actually pretty cool. When you blow the doors off someone's Evo who thought you had just like Neon, it's a pretty rad feeling, right? And then that kind of ties into it being a regular Neon. See, for those worried about how to spot an SRT-4, you kind of don't have to worry that much. You got a wing, you got a front mount, you've also got the exhaust note, you have the giant intercooler, you have the side skirts, and you have the pretty cool standard 17-inch factory wheels. They are a little bit lower. The rear wing is borderline comedic. If you see an SRT-4 from the back, the dual exhaust tips are a dead giveaway. Also, the SRT-4 badges, duh, on the trunk and on the seats are a sign that you are not looking at your grandma's Neon. Although, if grandma has an SRT-4, 1, we'd like to buy it, and 2, that would be pretty cool, right? So, are these things still relevant? Should you even buy one? Even though production ended in 2005, the SRT-4 has not faded into obscurity. Sure, it's definitely been overshadowed by more modern turbo compacts that are objectively better with fancier technology, like the Veloster N or the Civic Type R. But if you're looking for an old school, cheap, fun car with mechanical engagement and simple turbo fun, the SRT-4 still delivers, especially when you compare pricing. See, many owners, because these things are so cheap, have turned them into weekend toys, drag strip warriors, or put a huge turbo on and driven it around town to gap people. The platform's known reliability, assuming you keep it reasonably well maintained, lets you enjoy the car for free for tens of thousands of miles. Yes, it's got quirks, but what older performance car doesn't? Now, we're a wheel company, right? We sell wheels. Look behind me. We sell lots of them. So let's not forget about one of the best ways to personalize your SRT-4, aftermarket wheels. The factory 17s do look pretty cool, but if you put a set of lighter wheels on, it's gonna look better, it's gonna perform better, and that's kind of what we're here for, right? So sizing-wise, 18s, 17s are great. You're gonna want something probably affordable because you've got a pretty affordable car. So NK, Koenig, Heritage, we got them all on our website. We can bundle the wheels and the tires together. Or if you want to go drag racing, we got Welts, we got Bellics, we got Race Stars, and you can put those on. Put some Mickey Thompsons on, and you can go gap people on the street. Regardless of what wheels you're looking for, we have them at threepiece.us. Now the fenders are pretty large. You can run 17s or 18s without insane fender rolling, depending on offset or tire choice. You're not running super wide boys on this. Generally, your 18 by 8.5, 17 by 8 is going to fit well. You're going to want to run a like 225, 215 40 tire, and that's pretty much it. So if you're going to buy one, you watch this video. If I convinced you, or at least piqued your interest. Here are some things that you need to know. First step is go on Marketplace and lowball everyone as much as possible. So the first thing you're going to want to do is check the engine mods. A stock or lightly modded one might be more reliable than one that's been beaten half to death. But if the modifications are high quality and done by a reputable shop, that can be a bonus for you. You're going to want to obviously look for smokes or leaks. The turbo seals, the valve cover gaskets, and other typical 2.4 liter Chrysler problems might cause oil leaks or burning. Inspect these things thoroughly and make sure the car is running. Make sure that you test the car from cold start all the way. The clutch is a pain point. If you are dumping it and doing burnouts, you are going to feel slipping in higher gears or under load. Similarly, third gear does like to brake on these. Interior wear, the seats and plastic trim can and do show age. It's not a deal breaker, but factored into your budget. And just like buy some NRG seats and a steering wheel. Steering and suspension, standard stuff, guys. The bushings wear out. It's a 20-year-old car. The ball joints wear out. It's a 20-year-old car. They can cause alignment issues. Check if the previous owner has installed coilovers or lowering springs. Some are going to be great. Some are going to be budget conscious. You generally want like BC or better. Limited slip differential. 04 Plus models can come with a factory LSD, or it might have been added by a Mopar Performance. LSD is a huge bonus for these cars on traction. Rust-wise, if you are anywhere except like the Southwest, they can suffer from rust in the wheel wells, the strut towers, the underbody. Put it on a lift and give it the old 1-2 with a flashlight under there. So let's wrap it all up. The SRT-4 is a fun, affordable, boosted, American hot sedan. It's one of those cars that begs the question, why not? It's cheap, it's easy to modify, it's part of a storied Mopar performance lineage, and it's guaranteed to raise eyebrows when you chirp second gear at wide open throttle. Yes, the interior is absolutely trash. You will have to wrestle with torque steer. Any of your friends with any like actual quality car might give you grief, but that's part of the charm of the SRT-4. See, in my opinion, if you are like 17 right now and you're looking for a project car, back in my day, we used to buy S chassis because they were like $1,800, right? Well, here's the thing. They're not anymore. They're like $9,000. But if you want something that's fun and like cheap, you can get an SRT-4, get a daily driver because this thing's going to break. And you can modify it and you can learn because it's still like an old enough car that you can just throw a manual boost controller on, turn the power up, realize you turned it up too much and you sent a rod to meet Jesus. Go get another 2.4 liter motor out of a PT Cruiser at the junkyard, swap it in. It's an awesome platform to just build and learn and have fun with. It's not a high-end car, right? It's like made that clear at this point. But if you want a first project, honestly, I think this might be one of the best first project cars that you can buy at this point in time. It has issues, but they're well documented and they're easy to fix. And honestly, it's gonna run more than it's gonna break and you're gonna have fun driving it. If you guys enjoyed the video, let us know what other cars we should cover in the next one. If you have an SRT-4, add it to our vehicle gallery. Or heck, if you have any car, add it to our vehicle gallery to help others dial in the perfect fitment. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.